Temporary Protection Measures for Business Tenants COVID-19 Pandemic Bill. This council now becomes Committee of the Whole Council to consider the Temporary Protection Measures for Business Tenants COVID-19 Pandemic Bill. Members may refer to the appendix to the script for the debate and voting arrangements for this bill. Members have been informed that this committee will conduct a joint debate on the clauses, schedule, and amendments. I now propose to question to you that the following clauses and the schedule stand part of the bill. Clause 1 to 9 and schedule. Financial Secretary will move amendments which seek to amend the schedule. Hon Louis LOONG will also move amendments which seek to amend clauses 2, 5, and 7. Members may refer to the appendix to the script for details of the amendments. Members may now proceed to a joint debate on the clauses, schedule, and the amendments. I will first call upon the Financial Secretary to speak, to be followed by Hon Louis LOONG. But they are not required to move the amendments at this stage. Then I will call upon other members to speak. Upon the conclusion of the joint debate, this committee will first vote on the clauses with no amendments standing part of the bill, and then deal with the amendments according to the arrangements set out in the appendix to the script. Financial Secretary. Chairman, members. Since the announcement of the legislative proposal to introduce rental enforcement moratorium in the budget, we have been proactively engaging with relevant stakeholders and listened to the views of various sectors of the community. We have also refined the original legislative proposal in response to some of the comments. At the meeting of the Bills Committee on April 4th this year, members suggested that the scope of the catering business premises in Item 2 of Part 2 of the schedule to the bill should not be limited to premises providing dine-in services, but should expand to takeaway shops, bakeries, central kitchens, food manufacturing plants, and other places where business has also been severely affected due to the tightening of social distancing measures under the fifth wave of the pandemic. Regarding the member suggestions, we have carefully studied and agreed that the factors such as social distancing measures and employee work from home arrangements have greatly reduced the flow of people in our streets and affected the businesses of these premises to varying degrees. Therefore, the government considers there are good reasons to extend the protection measures under the bill to non-dine-in food premises. Accordingly, we now propose an amendment with reference to the Public Health Municipal Service Ordinance Cap 132 to add Item 2A to Part 2 of the schedule to the bill with reference to the type of premises prescribed by subsidiary legislation under Cap 132 to cover non-dine-in food premises proposed by members. The amendments will make the scope of the bill more comprehensive and can more effectively protect commercial tenants affected by the fifth wave of the epidemic. With this statement, President, I urge members to support the amendment proposed by the government. Mr. Louis LOONG. Chairman, in view of the provisions of the bill, there are two fundamental flaws and fail to fully accurately reflect the legislative intent. Therefore, I submitted the amendments earlier, hoping we can rectify these two mistakes to accurately reflect the legislative intent. Currently, the bill only specified the premises in the schedule to determine the scope. And just by using the schedule has way exceeded the legislative intent of the government to help these SMEs, which actually cover the larger scale companies. My amendment is to add the definition of the SMEs under Clause 2 to be defined with reference to the eligibility criteria under the SME Financing Guarantee Scheme. And in the definition of the tenants, clearly stated and refer to the small and medium enterprises. And the tenancy definition, we're adding an SME. And for clause and 4A and 7, bracket 1, bracket B, and I, which led to retrospectivity and actually make the protection period last as long as 7 months. That I propose to amend or delete the date 1st January 2022 and change it to the commencement date of the ordinance. I so submit. Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Here is my views on the proposed amendments. First, on the amendments by the FS, the bill stated only the premises covered in the schedule will be protected by this bill, which include those ordered to close, for example, cinemas, beauty parlors, and gyms, as well as those who are still operating, but due to the epidemic and social distancing measures, which led to a huge drop in revenue. For example, the dining establishments with the evening dine-in ban. These amendments aim to cover those who didn't provide dine-in services but equally hard hit. For example, takeaway shops, bakeries, central kitchens, and fruit manufacturing plants, which to be included of the scope of this bill. It has taken our views on board and make it more comprehensive, which I support. Mr. Loong's amendments are divided into two parts. First is to restrict the application of the bill is simply defined to the small and medium enterprises. And the SME definition removed all the listed companies and their associated companies. Thus, one of the key aims of the bill to help all the companies hit hard by the pandemic, including restaurants and retail outlets. And Hong Kong have plenty of restaurants and retail outlets belong to listed companies or their subsidiaries. Furthermore, since this is just a rental recovery moratorium, but not exempting the rentals from the tenants, for the well-financed tenants or those businesses not as hard hit by the pandemic, or actually those who actually benefit from the pandemic, their likelihood of failing to pay rent is extremely low, and they would not drag on their feet to pay rent. The second part of Mr. Loong's amendment is to defer the commencement date of the relevant periods from 1st of January this year to the commencement date of the ordinance, which from the 18th of March. As we all know that the fifth wave erupted on early January, and the toughened measures, for example, the dine-in evening ban and group gathering ban capped at 2, which were implemented in stages in early January. By deferring the commencement period to mid-March will actually water down the benefits of this bill. As for Mr. Loong's concern of this bill retroactivity and infringement on private property, somebody may lodge in JR is such on. The government had explained on many occasions, and the way it's drafted had made reference to other common law jurisdictions. Chairman, in view of Mr. Loong's amendment, will greatly reduce the scope of this bill and its benefits, and may be limited in deterring abuse. Therefore, I will not support the amendments. Like I said in the second debate, that with the fifth wave pandemic on the wane, the relaxation of the social distancing measures, with the economy gradually back on track, the rental arrears situation will be reduced. The actual applicability of this bill may become less likely. I so submit. Mr. Tommy Chang. I didn't expect to speak at this juncture, but upon hearing the speech from the FS, I was touched. I hope that the Civil Service Bureau would turn the FS speech as a course material. 22 years as a legislative member, I never heard a secretary of bringing such an exhaustive and straightforward explanation of the legislative intent and able to take on and explain why he took some of these on board and some didn't. This has been a wide eye-opener for me. Just now, I said that for the consultation period, I don't understand why it had to be 6 months. It only took you 2 weeks, and you canvassed a lot of the stakeholder views to carry out your amendments. The government should learn. While you have not been a civil servant, however, you've been getting better at your job. I agree with Mr. Chu Ka-fai. I hope that you'll continue to, you give up any outside job opportunities with less troubles and not need to cop the flag from the major property developers. Well, at the CSA stage, allowed to speak on amendments. Please return to the debate. Well, during the 1920 Black Cloud riots, I've been begging the landowners to reduce their rents. Some of the landlords obliged, which are discussing the amendments. I'm getting into it. Please do not repeat what you said in the second reading. I am getting there. At the time of the pandemic, I continued to beg the landlords. In the previous 2 rounds, well, I got some positive results. I explained to the members why we need to start on the 1st of January. And for the upcoming employment support scheme, we stated that the subsidy cannot be used to meet rent. And the last 2 rounds of ESS, some of the landlords noticed that the 20% of the subsidy can be used to pay rent and urged the tenants to surrender and refuse to reduce the rent. By 1st of January, and as read from the papers, and 3 of the landlords issued 71 summons urging the tenants to pay rent. It has been reported. We don't know the actual number, though. By dating back on the 1st of January and refusing to amend, we agreed. And by introducing this bill, Mr. Chair, you are not returning to the amendments. I thought I'm coming back. If you continue to digress, I will have to stop you. I support the Evans amendments. For Mr. Loong's amendments, I could not agree to them. Any other members would like to speak? If not, I will call upon Mr. Loong and the Financial Secretary who have proposed amendments to speak again. Then debate will come to a close.
Mr. Louis LOONG, do you wish to speak again? Well, I have nothing else to add, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Tony Chair spoke. I'd just like to clarify a point. Now, my amendment is to amend the commencement date of the relevant period, which will be the commencement of the bill, is not March. So to Mr. Tony Chair, it's actually worse news. Ms. Financial Secretary, do you wish to speak again? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. On Mr. Louis LOONG's amendment is actually to restrict the application of the bill to SMEs, and also for clause 5 bracket 4 bracket A and clause 7 bracket 1 bracket B bracket I, the commencement date of the relevant period under these 2 clauses will be changed from the 1st of January 2022 to the commencement date of the bill. Now, at the Bills Committee meetings, we've already stated our position to this proposed amendment, and the Bills Committee has also voted against accepting these amendments. So I would like to briefly respond to Mr. Louis Loong's amendments. First, should we limit restrict the application of the bill to SMEs? As government representatives said at Bills Committee meetings, the purpose of the rental enforcement moratorium is to provide business tenants of specified sectors facing operating difficulty amid the fifth wave of the COVID-19 epidemic with some breathing space. Now, for the majority of the businesses who will benefit from these measures would be SMEs. But we are not distinguishing businesses on their sizes as to whether they should be given protection under the bill. Now, we just quickly checked now the Legislative Council brief we submitted to this council. In paragraph 2, justifications of the legislative brief, and I quote, many enterprises, in particular SMEs, face huge difficulties amidst a suffocating business environment. So it's not just SMEs. Mr. Louis Loong suggested we refer to the eligibility criteria of the SME financing guarantee scheme in defining SMEs, and then listed companies should be carved out from the protection of the bill. We believe that means there are some businesses who may have been hard hit by the fifth wave of the epidemic, but they will not be protected by the bill. And this runs counter to the government's objectives of introducing the rental enforcement moratorium to protect Hong Kong's business and economic vitality, and also to safeguard employment for the benefit of employees. If you take the examples of the catering business and retail sectors, many medium-sized restaurants and retail outlets are operated by small listed companies. If they are carved out from the protection of the measures and are forced to close down, the resulting unemployment can be rather substantial. On the other hand, the prospect of such companies abusing the protection is slim. Business tenants usually wish to maintain a cordial relation with the landlords, and also they made capital investment on the business premises, such as the refurbishment. And also, if they delay rental payment, they will have to pay interest and surcharge. So if these companies could afford to pay the rent, there is little incentive for them to delay monthly rental payment because of the protection measures. So that's why we don't see the need to restrict the application of the bill to SMEs. Second point, or the second amendment of Mr. Louis Loong, which is about amending the commencement date of the reference period from the 1st of January to the commencement date of the bill. I've already addressed that point earlier. Now, with such an amendment, there is this amendment because there's a confusion between the protection period and the relevant period. So there's confusion about the two concepts. The protection period is about the 3 months of protection after the commencement of the bill. So during that period, landlords could not take action to recover rent in the arrears. But the relevant period, the commencement is the 1st of January. That's because that's when the fifth wave of the epidemic started. Now, we have relaxed social distancing measures, but there may still be some businesses which have defaulted in their rent payment. So we need to give them time to resume business so that they could have cash flow again to pay the rent. If we don't start counting from the 1st of January and we start counting from the commencement of the bill, that means landlords could still take legal actions against these tenants for rent in arrears between January and April, even if it's during the protection period, and that runs counter to our legislative intent of offering protection to these tenants. So members, I hope you would appreciate that. So I ask members to vote against the amendments of Mr. Louis LOONG. Thank you. The committee now first votes on the clauses with no amendments turning part of the bill. I put the question to you that the clauses with no amendment are set out in the appendix to the script stand part of the bill. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. This committee now deals with the amendments. The voting arrangements are set out in the appendix to the script. Mr. Louis LOONG, you may move your amendments. Chairman, I move my amendments to clauses 2, 5, and 7 as set out in the appendix to the script. I propose the question to you that Mr. Louis LOONG's amendment be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority. I think the question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendments negatived. And I'll put the question to you that clauses 2, 5, and 7 stand part of the bill. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Financial Secretary, you may move your amendments. Chairman, I move my amendments to the schedule as set out in the appendix to the script. Thank you. I propose the question to you that the Financial Secretary's amendments be passed. And I'll put the question to, will those in favour please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the amendments passed. Schedule as amended. And I'll put the question to you that the schedule as amended stand part of the bill. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. All the proceedings on the temporary protection measures for business tenants COVID-19 pandemic bill have been concluded in committee of the whole council. Council now resumes. Financial Secretary. President, I now report to the council that the temporary protection measures for business tenants COVID-19 pandemic bill has been passed by committee of the whole council with amendments. I move the motion that this council adopts the report. And I'll put the question to you that the Financial Secretary's motion be passed. Will those in favour please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Third reading.